Hey everybody, welcome to your next step of your journey to a better life. Again, I'm so thrilled and excited to see you all here. And before we start, guys, I want to ask you this question. How do you feel? Try maybe to pause this video and try to understand how do you feel so far? Because we went through a lot already, and you have learned and went through the practical exercises of a lot of different things and topics and themes which we have covered so far. So how do you feel? Well, I hope you feel great. I hope you feel this little shift which is happening within your mind, within your body, and with overall of your comprehension of everything which is going on around you and around this particular program. And I hope those exercises, practical exercises which I let you go through, help you to actually kind of simmer down the information and understand it even on the more deeper level. And by the way, we not even half through, guys. We have a little more than a half to go. And just imagine how much of the information and the topics we have already covered so far and how many of them are still ahead. I hope you are super thrilled and excited in the same way I am, because I know what is coming. And what is coming, every single step gonna get you even stronger, even better, and will move you towards to your goal. Okay? All right, let's keep up with our tradition and actually understand and remind ourselves what we have learned during the last step, the previous step. Well, in this step, we have learned something called adaptability. Another intangible skill which we all have to have in possession in order to succeed in life. Right? We have also learned how to actually practice and reinforce that skill through the scientific method, and actually how to improve our life by going through experimentation. Remember, experiments. We have also learned that there are 7 steps of how to actually experiment properly in order to make any kind of change in any area of our life. And that scientific and proven experimentation method almost guarantees us the results, which is change in any area of your life. How great is that? Today though, guys, I'm gonna introduce you to another intangible skill. And that skill directly correlates with the quality of your life. By having that skill, improving that constantly, and knowing how to apply that skill in your life, you will increase the quality of your life dramatically. And by the way, you can improve that skill constantly, therefore you can work on the quality and multiply the quality of your life all the time, non-stop. How great is that? It might not covering like all 100% of impact at the quality of your life per se, but it for surely played the crucial and major role in it. So buckle up and let's just start going through that. Today, step I call the power of humility and life quality score. And in this title, you probably already figured out what kind of intangible skill we're going to be looking at and learning today. You are right. That is humility. Before I define the humility, guys, I want to ask you the question. Do you know what humility actually is? Do you know how do you express the humility? Do you know what kind of level of humility do you have? Do you actually know how to be humble and all those things related to humility? I suggest you pause this video and think about it a little bit. Just, draw this picture for yourself. What do you think of humility? And then just, push the play button again and let's continue with my definition and my information, what I have prepared for you today. So, what is humility? Humility is the quality to be humble. As simple as that. And what that means? Well, that means that this quality helps us to ask questions and ask as many of them as we can and we want, and we don't get embarrassed because of it. Humility and to be humble means we actually are not afraid to ask for help, and we ask for help if we need that help. We are understanding that we need to learn, and we don't have all this figured out yet. Even if we think we know a lot, we still want to learn more. That skill help us to learn from others. That skill help us to understand things on a deeper level. That skill help us to actually implement things and be eager to implement things and be eager to improve ourselves and be eager to grow. And all many things that particular quality represents. And we're going to be talking about the major and core sub-qualities within this humility thing, right? And I'm going to make a lot of example of it, and even if after this definition what I have already provided to you, you still do not understand what humility really is, I'm going to give you plenty of examples today and will actually explain you what that is in action. Before I do that though, I want to say a couple of things. There are two types of humility levels. The first type is the outward humility, and the second one is inward humility. What they both means? Well, the outward humility means that you are humble in words. You're basically saying you are humble. You're saying you help people. You're saying you ask questions. You're saying you actually ask for help. You're saying you read books. You're saying you improve yourself all the time and learn all the time and things like that. You only say that, but not necessarily but you actually do that. And that's what I call outward humility. The inward humility, on the other hand, it's something we do in action, we show in action. So this is the humility in action. And this is what we're going to be interested in today, because this is something which we actually do. And other people, if they can say something about us, whether we're humble or not, they actually determine it by actions and activities which we perform. And we are very interested in that inward kind of humility. By the way, what is the opposite to humility? Well, the opposite to humility is pride. To be proud of yourself. To be so proud of yourself that you are so cocky and so angry on the outside. And you know, you're so festive and so proud of yourself on your outside, and you say all those things, but then you come to the inside, you not actually do those things. You're now not actually living those things. And majority of us, by the way, unfortunately, we live the life in that particular way, in that particular order. We are cocky and proud of ourselves on the outside, being humble on the outside and telling everybody we are, but on the inside, we are not humble at all. And we're going to be explaining and going through this journey today with you, understanding why is that happening and what do you need and what kind of skills should you train in order to reinforce that inward humility within you. I would also define humility that when someone is ready to go out of his or her way to seek and find the information to help him or her in particular situation. That's what actually humility is. It's when you go out of your way to seek the information to help yourself or someone else in the particular situation. That's all it is. And because of the level and depending on the level of your humility determines how successful you will be in seeking and finding that information and solving or resolving this particular situation you or your friends or your relatives are in. Great? I think you already started to, get the grasp for this particular quality and that humility thing and be interested in that and maybe trying to look at this from the different perspective and different angle than you were looking before. Now, I want to give you plenty of examples for you to understand what kind of inward and outward humilities can be out there and how beneficial or maybe even destroying they might be. All right? Let's start with a couple of examples based on the celebrities and well-known people, and then we're going to come to my own life and I'm going to share you a couple of examples from my own life, practical examples which help me to having this humility level help me huge in my life. Let's start with the first guy, and his name is Sam Walton. I don't know if you heard about this Sam Walton, but he is the founder of the Walmart, one of the, grocery store and different kind of store chains owners. And by the way, you can learn and read about this Sam Walton in this beautiful book he wrote himself, Made in America. I suggest you buy this book, and I'm going to put this book on the list of the books we all supposed to read, and I will attach this book to this particular step. All right. So what is great about Sam Walton? Well, you see, he was worth $160 billion at some point of his life, just because of that business of the Walmart, of that company he has created. So it's basically he was worth more than Bill Gates, than Jeff Bezos, than Elon Musk are worth right now, today. Well, today they're worth maybe a little bit more just because of the recent event related to COVID and everything, but the Sam Walton 30 years ago was that rich. Just imagine that. So now imagine that guy who owns this huge company and he's worth 160 billion. Now let's see what he was doing to get there and how he was expressing his level of humility. Well, first of all, his wife in that book says that thing about him. He's the guy who spends more time in his competitors' stores than in his office. Just imagine that, to have such a description from your own wife. And that was actually the fact. This guy basically lived in his competitors' stores. Why was he doing that? Because he was that humble. He was that humble. He knew he didn't have everything figured out. He knew he know a lot, but at the same time there is always more to know and understand. And therefore he was trying to figure out what others do and learn from others. He was humble. He was not afraid to be judged, and he was not settled in. He was not ready to, settle with all this money and all this wealth he has. He wanted to improve and still keep growing, and therefore he was spending time in his competitor's store. As a matter of fact, he was pretty crazy about it. At some point, he went to the Brazil because he wanted to open up the Walmart in the Brazil, right? And he wanted to research the market and everything else. And he stayed with this host family of his, right? Who took care of him and provided hospitality to him and things like that. And at some point, that host family, they got the call from the police department. And one of the police officers said, "Hey, come to us and get your guy out of the jail." So the Sam Walton actually got into the jail. Those guys were crazy. They were like streaming. They were just, heading to the police office department. And as soon as they got there, they told to these guys, they say, "Hey, are you crazy? You just put in jail like the most wealthiest person in the whole world. That's a billionaire, man. Why have you done that?" It's like, well, we saw the guy in Sao Paulo, different stores. And he was actually crawling on his knees in between the aisles. What had we do? We just took him to protect the society from him and maybe to protect himself. They thought he was crazy. Then that host family actually looked at the Sam Walton and they asked him the question, "Hey, what were you doing?" And Sam Walton had, "Well, I got this measuring tape and I wanted to figure it out how wide were the aisles in these stores. What my competitors know more and better than I know." Imagine that, the guy who is worth so much money, who can just sit and forget about the whole company, just sit back and relax and don't even think to work any day longer anymore. But yet he is in the different country, in the different stores, crawling on his knees and measuring how wide the aisles were. Imagine this level of humility, this level of understanding and wanting to understand even more, though you're already a successful person. How great is that? At some point of his life, by the way, there was another interesting situation with him. Again, related to the Brazil. There were two young guys, and they were actually creating some kind of competition to the Walmart. They also, were the owners of the retail chain in Brazil, and they wanted to learn more. They wanted to understand how to succeed. So at some point of their lives, and by the way, they have expressed humility that way. They wrote like 120 different letters to all the possible company CEOs which were working in the industry, including Sam Walton, including the CEOs of the Kmart, JCPenney, and all those huge companies like that. And they just asked for the advice. They wanted to interview them and figure out the things what they didn't know, which was very cool and good, and also show how humble those businessmen were, right? So they waited for like a couple of weeks. No one has replied to them. No one but one person. And you guessed it, that was Sam Walton. So Sam Walton replied them and say, yes, sure, let's talk, but come over to my place. And he was living in United States, obviously, and they were living in Brazil. So they took a plane and they just landed in United States just to meet this guy, Sam Walton. And they see that guy, a little guy, not little, I mean like the short guy, old guy with his old pickup truck standing there in the airport and waiting for them. So they got to that guy and they asked him, hey, you gonna get us to Sam Walton? And the guy said, I am the Sam Walton. Sit down in the car, guys, let's go. Again, humbleness, right? He doesn't care like how wealthy he is. He's just meeting the guys in the airport. Then he brings him to his house, and his wife cooks them beautiful dinner. They sit down at the dinner and they start talking, they talk and talk and talk. And within like 2 hours, these guys understand how humble that guy is, meaning Sam Walton. You know how they understood it? It's just because with these 2 hours, they didn't get any advice, they didn't get any answer to their questions from Sam Walton, but all 2 hours, they were actually answering questions he was asking them. So they just figured out that guy have agreed and responded to that letter just because he wanted to get answers from them who were just starting the business, and him being a shark in this business. He still wanted to figure out what these guys knew, and he didn't. Imagine that. He still answered a couple of their questions, but most of all, he got the answers himself, and he got very successful in Brazil. And this is the guy, as I said, which worth $160 billion. So with this example, guys, I want to show you how huge and important humility in action is. And it is very rewarding. It's as a reward of that humility, the Sam Walton became the wealthiest person in the world and created this long-lasting brand, the most recognized brand in this era right now, which is Walmart. How great is that? You want another example? Another example is Michael Jordan. You probably heard a lot of stories about him, but you should read this book if you have never read it yet. Michael Jordan, The Life. This book I got here in my hands, and I'm going to be talking and telling you a lot of stories from this book. I read it in this book. You know, Michael Jordan, he was very cocky and proud of himself outwardly, in words. He would just play these games with the team who were playing on the opposite side, and he would just humiliate those guys he was playing against. He would say something like, I'm gonna annihilate you, guy, talking to the opposite game's player. He would tell you, I'm gonna destroy you right on the field. He was like humiliating people, and he was coming out like this cocky and proud guy of himself. But as soon as he was coming back to the changing room, as soon as he was going to the practices, he was the guy who would ask the most questions out of everyone. He would ask questions to his team players. He would ask questions to his different coaches. What should I do? How can I do better? How did I do in this game? What kind of mistake did I make? Hey, help me. Hey, please help me to get better. He was the most humble guy out there. In this book, those coaches says he was the most coachable guy in the whole world. He listened, he understood, and then he went right away and implemented. This is one of the qualities, by the way, of the being humble. You listen, you not only listen, but you make sure you understand. If you don't understand, you ask questions, and then you understand, and then you go and implement it. And the Michael Jordan was the guy who was doing it tirelessly. He was even asking for advice from the players who were way worse than him. But he knew that he can pull out those golden nuggets, as I call them, of wisdom from anyone. He was just sorting them out and see which one of them could help. He was telling about himself that sometimes he wouldn't be even agree with the coaches on something, but he still took it, understood it, and done it. And that made him the best player on the planet. You probably also have seen the Netflix, the Last Dance, right, of the series about Michael Jordan. And you've seen him here. You've seen him there, right? He was very cocky and proud of himself on the outward, but inwardly, he was one of the most humblest people in the whole world. The trainer said he was the most coachable person in the world. And as a reward, he became the best on the planet. That's how humbleness and humility can help you actually accelerate your growth. Accelerate those two success factors. Remember, worth the damn and deserve it. Michael Jordan was worth the damn and deserve it by being humble. This is another example, guys, from the people whom you know. Hopefully you have heard of them at least once. Another example already closer to my life, which I have been touched up on and have experienced in. So at some point of my life, I came here to United States. It was like 17, 18 years ago. And I started to work in this restaurant, right, as a dishwasher. I didn't know any language back then, English language, and I didn't know what to do and how to do. So therefore, I kind of settled for the dishwasher position, and I could not get any positions which is higher than a dishwasher. And I remember the first time I came into the United States, I feel so overwhelmed, and I feel at the same time so excited, and I feel at the same time so tired of those 2 days of actually flying. I think I took like 3 different planes from the Eastern Europe to get to the United States, and it was Michigan State, Traverse City, right? And I went for this huge trip, and I come to that restaurant like very exhaustive, thinking, okay, maybe someone just help me to figure it out, where should I stay and leave right now and go to sleep, and then tomorrow we're probably gonna start working in this restaurant and something like it. And then one guy takes me and he says, let's go, I'm gonna introduce you to the owner. And I'm thinking we're gonna go to the office right now, and the owner is gonna be some guy with a suit and things like that. And yet he brings me to the kitchen, and I see that guy with the apron, like all dirty, chopping up some parsley or doing this crazy stuff. The whole chaos happening around the kitchen, the good chaos, meaning the restaurant is super busy, like all packed, and the guy is helping the waitress, he's helping the bus people, he's actually bussing the tables, he's actually washing the dishes himself, he trying and helping up the prep cooks to prep some stuff to give it to the cooks and the chef to make sure they can prepare those meals. He's like on his game, and I'm like, you kidding me? This is the owner of the restaurant? And he says, yeah, that's the owner. He introduced me with the owner, and I'm already seeing in his guy's eyes, this guy is humble. He's ready to do anything it takes. Seek this information, seek those things which can help him in this situation of the restaurant being so busy, and he see himself as the part of it, as the thing which can help to survive at this particular moment. And he's so humble. He forgot what he is the owner. He forgot he can do anything in his life. He forgot there are other managers and other people to do those things. He's just doing those things. And then I look at this man, and I'm like thinking, oh man, there is no way I'm probably coming back somewhere right now and sleep till tomorrow. And as soon as I thought that in my head, that guy says, hey, nice to meet you, take an apron, go to the dishwasher room and try to help wash dishes. And I'm like, well, I don't have the proper clothing, right? This is my traveling clothes and stuff. He looked at me And I saw in that look, that humbleness, that humility that let me just shut up and go to the dish room and just wash dishes for 5 more hours after the 2 days of the trip, right? So that was super crazy, but that's how humble that guy was. The story does not end there. I started to work in this restaurant, as I said, as a dishwasher, and I would just come in like 8 o'clock a.m. and I would leave around 10 or 11 p.m. without exaggeration, guys. That's how it was. And I was just wash dishes, I was washing bathrooms, I was vacuum cleaning the floors, I would get in the restaurants ready, in the mornings from like 8 o'clock in the morning till 11 o'clock a.m. And then at 11 a.m. restaurant would open and I would come back to the kitchen, to the dish room, and the dish room would be full with dishes and all stuff and so messy, and the day also began. And I knew I have like good 12 hours in front of me, right? So it was so exhaustive, it was so emotionally overwhelming, and I would cry sometimes because I was alone in this country myself, not knowing English, not understanding how to communicate with people and things like that. And yet that guy, and sometimes in the evenings, then the day would be over, the kitchen guys would just clean up their kitchen and just leave, shut the lights off, and I would be sitting there in this dish room with the piles of dishes higher than myself. Literally, I would not even see the entrance to the dish room because of the dishes and all the pots and pans that cooks would just come, bring it to me. And I would just sit in there, my back would hurt, and I'm already working like 16 hours and I wash those dishes and I'm ready to die, I'm ready to give up. And that guy, the same guy, the owner of the restaurant, he comes in, he brings me the bottle of beer, he gives me the beer and he said, "Hey, you've done enough today, buddy. Just sit down and relax and enjoy." He sit me down on this box, and I'm getting emotional about this, guys. He sit down me on the box, he put the apron on him. He takes this hose and he started hosing off all those dishes and washing those dishes himself. He comes back to the bar, gets all those guys, the kitchen guys, the cooks, the prep cooks, the chef, get them all back in the kitchen and let them help him to wash all those dishes while I'm sitting there on the box and sipping up the beer. That's what humility is in action. He was so cocky and proud of himself on the outside, guys. Everyone was afraid of him. I was afraid of him. He was very manly man, dude, and he would just boss us around like crazy. He was real leader. He was not the boss, he was leader. But he was not that only on the outside, he was that on inside. At some of the, again, a little bit about him, at some point of his career there in front of me, he would just sit at the bar and he would just wear those clothes which you would say he's like some kind of maintenance guy. And by the way, some of the guests, some of the restaurant guests and clients, they would actually percept and look at him as a maintenance guy. And he would be sitting in the bar and someone would come to him and say, "Hey, hey, maintenance guy, there is a problem in the bathroom. Can you go and fix it?" And guess what he was doing? He was standing up. He was like, "Hey, thank you for letting us know. I'm going to fix it right away." He would literally go himself and go in the bathroom and fix the toilet himself. And then come back and sit down in the bar and then talk to those people and never would mention he's the owner of the restaurant. That's what humility in action is. He was actioning. He didn't hear what others think. He didn't want and didn't care if he would be judged or something. He was not afraid to start small. He was not afraid to do big things, and he was just doing it from the bottom of his heart. And I love him dearly, and this is what humility is, with example of his. All right, another example, and hopefully you like those examples, those stories, guys, because they illustrate big time what humility is. Last but not least, how humility helped me. I told you in the previous videos and on the videos on my social media profiles, I also say that at some point of my life, I decided to be the learning machine, right? Because I was so stuck in my life, I didn't know how to go forward until I start, to learn things. And at this point of my life, I decided to do this. I have to be the best at anything I do, and I have to get this being best within 3 months. I don't know where those 3 months came from, but that was just my goal. I said, if I see someone I want to compete with, I have to become better than this guy or that girl within 3 months. And that was my mentality. So at some point in my life, I started to work in this store And I didn't know about sales, nothing. And I started to sell TVs. I was working in this TV audio kind of department of this particular store. I didn't know about TVs, nothing. But I started to learn, and within a week I became the best salesman of the TVs in this particular store. How did I do that? I asked questions for those guys who were working there. I actually was asking questions for clients. Clients would come to me and I was supposed to sell those TVs to them, but instead of that, I was asking them what do they know about the TVs? What the criteria do they use to actually select the TVs? Why? And things like that. And I was learning like crazy, and I became the salesman, the best salesman of that month in that particular store. As a matter of fact, while I was doing that, I was very interested in computers, and we had the computer department. So I would just get on the heads and the necks of those guys who were working in the computer department, and I would just ask them the question. And then at some point I would decide, hey, I gotta start being better than those guys who selling those computers. So I start literally on my pauses of on lunches and during the night time, I was just learning about the computer. I would just go on the internet, read about the computer, figure out how to sell them and things like that. At some point of my life, during the meeting, there was the brainstorm about computers and stuff, and I was already so knowledgeable enough. I started to give them ideas, and the managers of the store, they were like amazed, and they say, hey, you want to work in the computer department store? I was like, yes, I want it. You want to lead it? They said. I said, yes, I want it, and I became the lead salesman in the department, in the computer department store. The thing I didn't know about at all 3 months ago. So that strategy worked me, and that humility level helped me just to go up and become, and at some point in my life, I became the manager of the whole store. Again, in this restaurant, by the way, I started to work as a dishwasher, as I told you, but I felt in love in this restaurant, and I wanted to come back as something more in this restaurant. And by the way, within a couple of weeks working as a dishwasher, I became the prep cook, because they kind of offered me a raise. Because they said, hey, we cannot use this energy and this humility level only in the dish room. Let's take you to the kitchen. You want to start working in the kitchen? I said, yes. And I got the taste of the kitchen, and I said, hey, I want to work in the kitchen. And at some point of my life, when I came back to my country, I decided to come back to United States, but go and find the best chefs out there to start learning how to cook. Because my goal and my dream was to come back to that same restaurant I was working as a dishwasher and work as a cook. So I came, as a matter of fact, here to South Carolina, where I am residing right now, and I found and I selected those chefs who had the TV shows on their own, and I tracked them down. I figured out they work here in South Carolina in a couple of the companies, and I applied to those companies as a dishwasher, by the way, for the dishwasher position. That was my humility level, because I knew I have to start low, and I was ready to start low. And then I knew I'm gonna go up as the same way I did in that department store, and I will become the cook. And then I get this knowledge, and I will come back to that restaurant I was working before with this brilliant guy. By the way, his name is Rick. Hope you don't mind I'm mentioning you, Rick, here. And we're dear friends right now, and I was ready to learn. So I tracked them down, I applied for the job, I got the job at one place as a dishwasher, and within a week I became the salad bar manager, guys. Just because of my humbleness and humility level in action. Those guys saw me, what I was doing, and what I was doing is I was working my butt off, I was asking huge amount of questions, I was asking for help, I was tailing everyone. I was the tail of manager, tail of chef, tail of the cooks, and all those people, just to suck this knowledge out of them. Long story short, I became one of the best in this particular place here in South Carolina, and then I got invited to become the head chef in one of the Holiday Inn restaurants, which would serve 600 people at one setting. Just imagine that. I became the head chef so rapidly and quickly, because my head was spinning. And at some point of my life, I just decided to call to that guy Rick in that restaurant, and I said, I want to come, I want to become the sous chef. I don't know why I said the sous chef. I was probably a little bit, not that proud of myself yet, which is also humbleness. And I said, I want to be sous chef. And he said, well, why do you think you can be a sous chef? And I started started to tell him all these stories about what kind of achievements do I have here in South Carolina, what kind of chefs I have learned from, what did I learn from, what kind of things did I cook, what kind of things I think we should put on the menu in that restaurant I'm calling for right now, and all those things. And he said on the phone call right away after that conversation, he said, come here, you are the sous chef in this restaurant. I came there, long story short, in 1 month I became the head chef in that restaurant. Guys, head chef in a restaurant, I started to work as a dishwasher. Don't get me wrong, I'm not telling you this to brag. I'm telling you to illustrate the power of humility, the power of being open, the power of asking questions, the power to be stubborn and just go through all the obstacles and go through and achieve the things which you want out of life by learning from others. Be with others. Don't be ashamed to ask questions. Don't be ashamed to ask for help. How powerful is that? And I can go on and on and on and on. At some point of my life, last example I promised, at some point of my life, I decided to switch from the restaurant business to IT. I just wanted to start working in IT because my education is related to IT. I finished up the technical universities for crying out loud. So I was going to try myself there, but I didn't know nothing about IT. And I applied for a job in this company who was doing like all the websites and CRM, building CRM system, ERP internal systems and things like that. And I applied to that. And I applied for the job offer. And fortunate for me, they invited me, though I didn't have a thing on my CV related to IT. So I was surprised already. And I come to this interview, I see these guys, 2 guys sitting there, and they're kind of smiling, they're holding my CV, and I know there is nothing there on my CV related to IT. And they ask me, hey, why do you think we have to listen to you at all? Because have you seen your CV? And what I did is, I took this CV, I basically kind of pulled this CV out of their hands, I put this aside, I slide it aside like that, and I said, hey, I know but you have not seen anything in my CV related to IT. But have you seen where have I started to work in this department store? Which position have I took? And then in what position have I finished this work in this particular place? Then if you saw it, you would figure it out that I started from the lower position and I became the manager of the department store. And then you probably have seen on my CV that I have been working in restaurant business as well. And you've probably also seen that I was a dishwasher at some point in this restaurant. And then at the same restaurant, I became the head chef. What do you think it took me to achieve that? You think it took me skills? You think it took me something which I already knew? No. I have the different skill set, and I was referring without knowing, guys. I was referring to those intangible skills we learning with you right now, including this humility thing. And I said, I have this energy, I have this focus, and I can conquer the world, guys. Your job today, and that I literally said that, your job today is just to believe me and give me a chance. And trust me, I will do the same. I will come from the lowest position in your company to the highest one within very short period of time, and I will become employee of the month. They were so impressed, they almost gave me a job on the spot, but they were like keeping cool, and they said, hey, we have a lot of candidates to that position, let us see, maybe we're gonna call you, talk to you later. And I left. Within 15 minutes I got the call and I got the job. Guys, I got the job without anything in IT. I showed them I have those intangible skills, and I showed them experience in a different industry, but those intangible skills in those industry helped me to actually grow and get to those positions. Long story short, in 1 month, I became employee of the month. That CEO who has interviewed me have announced me as employee of the month. How great was that? And that is all, again, not for bragging, guys, for the humility. If not for the humility, I would not be able to achieve that. All right? So now you understand how important humility actually is, right? I hope you understand that, because it's huge, and humility helps you to accelerate your growth. And humility is one of the most important accelerators for those 2 success factors which have talked about with you recently in one of the steps. Worth the damn and deserved factors. In order to accelerate them and evolve them, and they are the factors of ultimate success, guys, we have to pound and we have to practice humility, because humility is the key to the success. Okay? All right. Now I told you all those stories, and I hope you liked them, and I made them as energized as they possibly are, and they are even more energized and fun in reality, trust me. Now let's summarize. Let's summarize and try to define, so what are those main qualities of the people to actually be humble? Because I want you to understand today or what you need to do or how you need to be in order to actually be humble and practice humbleness, practice humility. So what did those humble people do? And what we can find in common in all those stories which I have just told you? The first thing, and I have like a list, I actually prepared even the notes for myself, because I just don't want to miss out and forget something which is very important, but I still have it in my head and I'm just gonna pour it at you because you feel my energy, hopefully, and I'm very passionate about that topic. So the first thing the humble people do, they actually understand that they don't have it all figured out. This is very important. All those cases, all those examples, all those people knew they don't have everything figured out. Therefore, they were ready to learn. They were ready to listen. They were ready to acquire more knowledge. And we have already talked about it with you, right? Those people, by the way, they listen more than they speak. Think about it. They listen more than they speak. And it does make sense. Because if you speak, you only speak up from the place of your knowledge. You already know that thing. So why would you want to speak? You need to listen, because when you listen, you learn. Then you listen, you understand. How great is that? Another thing, they listen. They not only listen, but they understand. And if they don't, they ask more questions to understand. And then they implement. Remember that Sam Walton, he learned from the Brazilian guys, he understood, and then he implemented in his business, and he actually overcompeted them in Brazil, right? So they do that. They invest in themselves. The first investment they make is in themselves. They self-educate themselves, guys. What they else do, they ask a lot of questions, because the quality, and they ask the very quality high questions, because the quality of questions impacts the quality of answers they get, and the better answers they get, the better decisions they make, the better actions they take, the better results they get. So they ask questions. They're not afraid to ask for help. They ask for help. They seek help. They learn and study their competitors. Remember Sam Walton? He was living in the stores of their competitors more and spent more time there than in his office. So they learn and study for their competitors. They go and learn from others. They seek for mentorships, because they know, and we have already covered with you in our previous steps as well, they know how many of years they can shave off the learning curve. That's why they learn from others, and that's why the Sam Walton has invited those guys to his house, because he wanted to learn from others. I wanted to learn from the department store guys who were selling computers. I wanted to learn from the best chefs out there, and I was willing to go and fly to the United States and work with them here in order for me to get the position somewhere else. That's what humility in action actually means, right? They study their competitors, as I said. They go to the seminars, webinars, they buy programs like that. They invest money, not only the time, but they invest money in themselves. And that's the third thing, what they do, right? They are, by the way, They are obsessed readers. They read a lot of books. They basically sit on the books. They read like one book a day because they understand those books are the mentors for them as well. And they pick those golden nuggets out of those books, out of those people. And they have this ability and opportunity to talk to the imminent dead. Those guys who already died, but you can still talk with them through those books, and they read a lot of books. Those are the most important qualities of those people who are hugely successful in the areas of their life, in most of the areas of their life, because they're being humble in all of those areas. And I want you to become humble if you are not yet. And I want you to, and I need you to be humble, because in order to get the most out of this program, a shortcut to a better life, you gotta be humble. You gotta be humble enough to listen, to understand, to invest your time to practice, and then implement actually in your life. Because if you're not going to implement, it's not going to work for you. And then you're going to say, hey, that program did not work. That program is not good. But the thing you would say that just because you did not implement those things, you were not humble enough. You were not humble till the very end. Understand that? All right, so those are the qualities now. We now know the qualities. What should we do? The qualities basically show us what should we do to be and stay humble. Now, we're going to the second part of this step. The first part, as I said, was the power of humility. I hope I showed you and I gave you that feeling, the power of humility. Now you hopefully have this momentum of understanding how powerful the humility is. That's why I said the power of humility. It's huge. It's gonna give you and get you to the huge benefits. You're going to reap huge rewards, like Michael Jordan becoming the most valuable player in the whole world, like Sam Walton becoming the richest person in the world, like me becoming the super happy and wealthy and healthy and financially free person in the world as I feel myself now, and so on and so on and so on, right? So now, would you like to evaluate the level of your humility? And that level of your humility, by the way, directly correlates to the quality of your life. That's why I call it life quality score. It obviously, we have the different opinions which sometimes might be objective of what the actually quality of life is and what the quality of life for us is. But I want to assure and I'm going to bet that humility plays the crucial role in that quality. Maybe not 100% as I said before, and I agree with you, but just, stick with me and listen to this and understand that level of humility, what you have right now, or the one which you might increase to and get to, will definitely impact the quality of your life. That's why I call it the life quality score. So to figure out the score, the process is very easy. And by the way, I'm going to provide you the template, which is going to be attached to that video to perform this exercise also after that step, after this video. So don't you worry if you're not going to be able to maybe put it together perfectly as you want it to be while I'm having this conversation with you. So you're gonna ask yourself these 4 questions. The first question is how humble you are in your persuasion of mentors. Do you seek for mentors? Do you look for mentors? Do you try to learn from others? Try to evaluate this from 1 to 10. Like, what kind of effort do you put to have mentors in your life? Like, do you fly to the different country maybe even to figure it out and try to be mentored by someone? So 0, it means you don't have mentors, you don't care about them, you didn't even think about mentors. And 10 is like you are flying all over the place. You are flying to different countries to be mentored by those beautiful brilliant mind out there. You are investing a lot of money in courses and mentors in the virtual or maybe personal mentorships and coachings and things like that. And you have like at least 2-3 mentors who mentor on you in 2-3 different areas of your life. There will be 10. So evaluate yourself from 0 to 10. Where are you in effort of actually working and pursuing mentorship? All right? This is the one thing. So you got the number, just, put the number in. The second question is, how much do you read? And by the way, I'm not talking about the books like fiction books and stuff. I'm talking about the books which actually can help you to improve the most important areas of your life, like love, health, wealth, happiness, fulfillment, relationships and things like that. Okay, so 0 would be like you don't read at all and you don't care about reading. The 10 would be you read like 5 books a week. You like reading 1 book a month. 1 book a day, I'm sorry, and you're obsessed about reading. That would be 10. Evaluate yourself from 0 to 10. Where are you in the effort of reading books? All right, the second one. The third one, where are you in tracking down your competitors, learning from them and studying them? And by the way, if someone of you do not have business, it still applies to you, because in life, your competitors are other people. Even if you work, your competitors, those people who can actually take your place, who can actually replace you at your workplace, because they might become better. They might acquire a lot more knowledge, a lot more skills. So you still compete with them, right? So do you study your competitors? Do you figure it out and study from the people you're working with? Do you try to be better than them? Have you tried something like I tried for myself? I decided to be better than anyone else in the company where I work in within 3 months. That was my goal, and I was doing it all the time. And in IT field, I was doing it all over the place, and it worked as a charm, and I brought a lot of value to the table, and I had this worth the damn factor and deserve factor through the roof, right? And it helped me a lot. So where are you in that? In studying your competitors? Here, 1 or 0, you don't do it at all. 10, you basically spending like a Sam Walton most of the time studying and learning about competitors, even more than you study and learn about your business yourself. All right. So this is the third thing. All right. Now, the last one but not least, how often do you go to the seminars? How often do you buy the programs like that? How often you invest real money in yourself? How often do you do that? How much money do you invest? 0, 0. You don't go to the seminars, webinars. You don't buy paid programs, and you don't do anything whatsoever. 10 is like you have this plan. You basically buying a course a week. You are having this plan, what kind of seminars and webinars you're going to visit. You go to the other countries to visit such webinars and seminars. You spend like 30% out of your savings on yourself. You invest in yourself. There will be 10. Where are you in this scale? All right? You got another number. So now you got 4 numbers, right? Very easy. Now summarize those numbers and divide them by 4. You got your average humility level score. If you want to expand those questions, ask yourself more of those questions related to all those qualities we have listed. What does it mean to be humble? And there were more than 4. If you do not agree with me and do not maybe think that only these 4 depend and impact your humility level, you can do that. But for this video's sake, for those 4, what kind of number did you get? Well, if you got 10, which is very impossible, basically, we should strive for 10, but 10 is very hard to get. But even if you got it, I'm super glad for you. I think you live I'm gonna guess, you live the very happy, fulfilled, and very humble life. But I would also guess that majority of you, including me, we are not 10. We are something lower. And my goal, guys, not only today, but going through the whole program for the whole course, my goal for you is to get as humble as you can and increase this score to at least 7, 8, or 9. Because, I've been there, and I've been 3 at some point of my life. And that was not good life for me. I was confused about the life back then. I didn't read books. I didn't look for mentors. I didn't have any mentors. I didn't invest in myself whatsoever. I didn't think about others, about the competing with them, about the businesses and all those stuff. I didn't think about that. And back then, I had the pretty low life, lower than average. And as soon as I started to increase this humility level by doing all those things and practicing those things, and then measuring the life quality level, that went up. And at the same time, I was feeling a lot better. I was doing a lot better. So that directly correlates with the quality of your life. Now, how do we impact that score, right? How do we actually work with this score, and what do we do with this score to increase it? Well, we practice all those skills and all those actions and activities which we have listed before, and I'm going to repeat you once again. But before we do that, I want to discuss with you another topic which is related to humility. So if I said this so easy, and we have already listed all those things which humble people do, we just need to now start repeating that and doing that. And that is super simple. But as usually, it's not that easy, apparently, and I'm not saying that, well, I am saying it, but statistic also shows that. Why there is so little people like Sam Walton, like Michael Jordan, who are so humble, and a lot of people, a lot of us who are not humble at all, who are very humble outwardly, but not humble inwardly at all. Like, why is that? What makes the difference? And by the way, majority of us, if we're talking about the whole population of the world, majority of us are not inwardly humble. Why is that? I got an answer for you guys. And again, those are the fears. That's right. Now I hope you understand why did I start working on the mindset and psychology in the beginning of this program, not on the strategies yet. Because you see, again, here the fear is the obstacle to be humble, and to be humble means to increase your success, life success factors. And to increase those life success factors means to get anything out of life what you want and make any change. So that actually impacts you. The fears impact you on that deep level. And what the fear is? Well, the fear is when we believe in something. If we do something, we might get hurt, right? We just believe. We have this belief. We have this feeling of what? Absolute certainty. What else is feeling? Well, the belief. Belief is the feeling of absolute certainty. The fear is the feeling of absolute certainty. If I do something, then something bad might happen to me. That's the fear. And the fear actually stops us to be humble. You're going to ask me, how come? How it correlates? How the fear correlates with us being humble? Well, I'm going to explain you. Just think about it. Do you think if you have right now, for example, you have 5 or 4, right? Or even if you have 6, do you think, have you ever had like 9 or 10? And I assure you, you had. You know when? In your childhood. You see, the humility, the humbleness, the quality to be humble is inborn with us. We were born with it. And in the childhood, we were number 10. We were number 10, guys, in humility. Because just remember yourself, you were asking questions like crazy. You were making your parents nuts, right? You were asking for help without thinking of any judgment, without being afraid and things like that. You were asking for help. You were eager to learn. You were asking those questions to learn. And then as soon as you learned, you went and you experimented with that. You were being adaptable. Remember, we talked about adaptability. Yeah, you made a lot of mistakes, but you were humble to go through those mistakes. And you were experimenting like crazy, right? And then you were listening again, and you were understanding and then going implementing. You had all those qualities. And by the way, you were looking up to your parents. You were looking up to all those people around you, and you were going besides them, behind them as the tail, and asking them questions. Basically striving for mentorship. You were all those things. But at some point of your life, you stop being that. Why is that so? Well, the thing is, when you are being humble and when you practice the humility, you actually also becoming a little bit or maybe more vulnerable. You might seem a little bit naive and maybe a little weak from the other people's perspective. It's not the weakness to be humble, don't get me wrong, but from other people's perspective, they can perceive you as a weaker person at those moments of your humility. And what they might do is they might take advantage of you. And I'm assuring you, if your humility level is low today, that only is because someday, a long time ago, maybe recently, you got hurt because of being humble. You got taken advantage of those people in the moments of your humility. Let's say you were asking questions and you were maybe called stupid. Hey, stupid, why do you ask so many questions? Shouldn't you know of those answers already by now? Or things like that. Or maybe then when you were asking for help, you were called helpless. Helpless piece of, crap. I'm sorry for my French, and all those things. And you got hurt. And as soon as you got hurt, you understood, you developed that belief that if you're gonna get, and when you're gonna get humble, you might get hurt. And we know already our mind wanna what? Protect us. So our mind, being our protector, helped us, quote unquote, to now eliminate the moments of humility, to make sure we are not being humble in order to not being hurt. And that became our defense mechanism. That cockiness, that proud and pride, which is we started to put on the outside, outward, that became our defense mechanism against those people or the environments or the events who might take advantage of us, in other words, hurt us. And we started to push down our inner humility to protect ourselves. And yet, while it was our defense mechanism and protected us, it also became our destroying mechanism. It destroying our potential. It destroying our faith. It destroying our eagerness to learn. It destroying our open-mindedness. It destroying our psychology, and we procrastinate, and we stop growing, and we stop becoming happy and fulfilled. But I told you all that just to understand where it comes from. If you feel pressure, if you feel fear, then you're trying to be humble, to learn something new, or trying to pursue mentorship. I'm just explaining for you to know it. But I feel very confident about you guys because you already know what the beliefs are. You know what your disempowering beliefs are. You know how to overcome them. As a matter of fact, you know how to take empowering actions. You know how to expand on your identity. You know how to prioritize your needs now and put the focus on your needs or your primary needs. You also know how to use your state of mind and the body to get the successful and success out of life. You already learned how to increase your success factors by learning and acquiring the skills. You learned how to be adaptable, and you now know how to experiment and go through life for the experiments, and today you learn what humility is. All that should help and will help you to break through those fears and be humble, because to be humble is just to be one huge step closer to anything which you want to achieve in your life. How great is that? So I think now you are super equipped with this knowledge, with the practicality of this, and now you also know the level of your humility. How awesome is that? Okay, we get into the end of this step by step. But now I wanted to give you another example just to kind of wrap it up, this topic, and I think this example is very illustrative. How other might perceive us from the perspective of level of humility. And I already told you, like those others, they might even give us a job, like in my case, if we show the level of humility, right? So it impacts the whole thing hugely. One of my mentors, by the way, who is the billionaire, he was telling this one story, and I saw in that story that how humility work in action. He said a lot of guys ask him for help, and they just write them emails and send them letters for asking for help. And he said at some point, one of the guys wrote him email with just one sentence. Hey, I got this $1 billion idea. Let's meet and I'm going to tell everything about you and we're going to become the billionaires. Well, for starters, that guy was already the billionaires. Second of all, that was pretty cocky and proud email, right? That guy was saying he knows how to earn 1 billion. So my mentor said, I wrote him email back and asked him, have you ever built a business which would be worth 100 millions? The guy responded, no. Then my guy was also responding them back and saying, hey, have you ever built a business which was like $100,000 worth? And the guy responded, no. And there was another question, have you ever built something which brought like 1,000 in revenue? And the guy responded, no. So my mentor said, guess what? Have I met him? Have I agreed to meet him or not? And obviously not, because that guy was not humble enough. He was not humble. He did not show the humility in action and in results which we have so far, but he showed the humility only outwardly with his words. And that kind of pushed back the investors, the guys who might even play the crucial role in the making the business for the guy who just wanted to make this business. So he might have just, with his outwardly humility, lost his opportunity in his life, maybe the only opportunity in his life, just because not having of that humility. On the other hand, the guy said, I had another proposition like that, but something different. The guy actually wrote me and said, hey, I have this proposal to you to actually enter the hotel business, the hospitality business, and I want you to become an investor in this business. But before you become an investor, I want you to know a little bit more about my business. And he started to list all those things. Hey, I am the guy who learned and studied the humility for the last 15 years. I'm the guy who already has opened the hotels, 3 different chains of the hotels all over the place. I am the guy who live in the hotels, hotels of competitors, and spend more time there than in my office. I am the guy who read 120 books on the hospitality, on the communication, on the travel industry and things like that. And I have this and that money in revenue, and therefore I want to invite and become the part of my huge success here. And guess what the guy said, what the mentor says? Obviously I replied, and we had the meeting, and I became the investor. So that's what is the difference between two guys. And by the way, I did the same thing when I came to that interview, right? I said that only humility helped me, but at the same time I brought the experience to my table, experience where I had already used the humility, right? Those were not empty words. I showed them how I used the humility to actually get the raise in both places and become at some point manager of the store, at some point the head chef of the restaurant, right? And at some point the best employee in an IT company I never knew about 3 months ago, and things like that. So all those are the things which actually strengthen humility in you. And humility is everything, guys. You will reap the huge rewards and you will get a lot of huge dividends out of your life if you're gonna practice humility and if you're gonna be humble. I cannot say enough about it. All right, I think we come to the point where we should conclude. Let's conclude, and let's once again repeat all those things which we need to practice and be good at in order to become humble. All right? So what we learned today is another intangible skill, I would even say asset, which you have to have within you, and we call it humility. And we figured out and learned that humility is the quality to be humble, right? And the quality to be humble help you to accelerate the success factors in your life, which is worth a damn and deserve it factors. And we actually went through and we measured the level of your humility, the level of your humility and your humbleness. And we figured out what kind of level of it do you have right now. By looking at this number, you now know where you have to work and which area of those skills which humility is being described with you have to work on in order to increase that number, right? We also have defined the sub-qualities of this humility of which you need to train and practice on in order to be master of humility. Humility machine, let's call it that way. We were talking about the adaptability machine during the last step. Let's talk about the humility machine. And we have learned that in order to become the humility machine, you have to understand that you don't have everything figured out. You have to keep learning. You have to listen more than speak. You have to invest in yourself. You have to Not only listen, but understand. Ask more questions to understand more and then implement those things. You have to study and actually learn your competitors and sit on their shoulders and, not let them to outcompete you. You have to invest money in yourself. Go to the webinars, seminars, buy the programs like that. You have to read books, guys. You have to read a lot of books about all those areas you want to make a change in and become successful in. You gotta do all these things, guys. You gotta pursue mentors. You gotta learn from others because it's gonna help you to shave years of the learning curve. And all those guys I was talking about, they all had mentors. Like Bill Gates, they had mentors. Like Michael Jordan, he's obviously had mentors. Sam Walton himself had mentors. Jeff Bezos, the owner of the Amazon, he also had mentors, and by the way, one of my mentors was Sam Walton. He didn't work with him in private, but he was mentored by him through his books. Jeff Bezos has read all the Sam Walton's books twice, 3, 4 times, multiple times, and he was that way mentored by him. Even Mother Teresa had mentors. Even Alexander the Greatest had mentors. All of those successful people. Warren Buffett had mentors. Thomas Edison has mentors. All these guys I mentioned before, right? They all had Einstein. He has also mentors. Muhammad Gandhi. They all had mentors. All of them had mentors, and we gotta have mentors to shave off those years, shave those years off the learning curve. All right? And last but not least, and that's all the things which we need to do to practice, guys. Okay? And last but not least, I want to say this quote, and I don't remember who said that, but I love it. The quote goes as follows: we, as human beings, we dream like we are mortal, but yet we act like we are immortal. Just think about it. We dream in our head like we are mortal. We understand we have this limited time. So we dream a lot and we want a lot of things out of life. And yet when it comes to execution and acting, we act like we are immortal, like we have 1,000, 10,000 years in front of us to do all those things, to be open, to learn from others, to talk to others, to ask questions, to ask for help, to read books, to learn more and things like that. But no, guys, it should be the opposite. We should act like we are mortal, and we are. We have limited time. So it is time for you right now, guys, to stop being stubborn, to stop your pride, to start being proud of yourself and start being humble. Open yourself up for new opportunity. Start learning and start becoming the humility machine. The time is now. Today, as I said also and mentioned before, you're the youngest you will ever be. So the next best time to start practice your humility is today. And this is one of the foundational things. I know I talk about every single step that way, but it truly is, and I hope I helped you to understand that through this lesson and this step today we took forward to a better life. All right, last but not least, the homework. As usually, guys, you gotta keep that momentum. If you now understand what your humility is, if you now want to train this humility, if now you know what the score and level of your humility is, you are in momentum, you are so impressed about it, hopefully, and you want to start working and keep working on that. Therefore, I'm giving you this homework. This homework is legit, guys. It's not something cheesy I just give you to create the content. No way. I don't need it. I went through all that, but I know you need it because I know I have needed it before, and I needed to go through the practical steps, and I actually had to do something in order to dive deep into this topic and make sure it settles in my mind and it rewires my mind and help me to make the necessary shift to create any difference and any change in any area of my life. So questions are as follows. The first, in which areas of your life, and maybe in all of them, you feel like you haven't been humble enough? And to be humble, you know, all those qualities you have to practice, right? In which areas you haven't been humble enough? Figure that out. And then next question, What is the tangible thing you can start doing right now to increase this level of your humility in this particular area? Maybe you need to buy the book and start reading this. Maybe you need to look for mentors and get the mentor and start doing that. Maybe you need to buy another program, one of my programs or the programs of others. Maybe you need to schedule the seminar. Anything with tangible, plan it out right now and start working on it to increase your level of humility in this particular area which you want to improve. Next question, how is your inward humility compares to your outward humility? What is the proportion there? If they're disproportionate and your outward humility kind of overweights your inward humility, work on that. Figure it out what you need to do that and how can you practice that and actually increase that. Next thing, create a list of books you need to read to be humble, to become humble, to figure out more, to learn more. And by the way, you can use as a starters, for starters, you can use the list of all the books which I attach to every single steps. There are at least like 20, 30 books out there, and you can easily start with them because those are the foundational books. I then put them together together in all those videos, and as a result, you will be able to compile out of all those videos the list of books which is going to be for like half a year for you to actually pound on them and read them. Create the list of mentors you want to be mentoring by, and don't be shy. Create very ambitious goals. Like if you want to be mentored by the President of the United States or the President of other country, just put that on a list and then come up with the plan. How can you approach them? How can you actually get attention of them? And how can you find this evolutionary stable strategy, win-win kind of strategy to be mentored by that guy or the girl, and at the same time maybe bring the value to their table, because this is the most efficient way. And we're going to be talking about this in upcoming step of how to actually communicate with the mentors and how to actually get those mentors to work with you. That thing is coming. And last but not least, create the list and maybe plan and schedule the seminars, the webinars, the masterminds, the live events which you want to visit. For example, myself, I put the plan for myself to participate in at least three immersive events, like super immersive events within the year, which each of them would last like for 3-4 days. And I plan them out, I buy them, and I schedule them into my calendar, and I know those times and those time slots, they are busy because I am there and I'm in the seminars and I'm being humble, I'm learning from others, and I am getting myself out there. All right, create the list of those, create the schedule, create a commitment, and actually go through them and learn and practice your humility. Okay? All right, guys, I think it's enough out of that step. I hope it was useful for you. Practice that humility and become the humility machine. Meanwhile, I will talk to you on the next step.